everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Spartan Sports Report. And Sam and I are happy to join with head coach Kerry Brown from CHS. Kerry, welcome.
Good to be here again, guys. Thank you for having me.
We're always pleased to have you.
3 short weeks. It all begins the 21st of November.
Yeah, we've got one more week of open gyms this week, and then about 2.5 weeks of practice, and it'll be here before we know it.
What's an open gym?
We work out 3 times a week in October. 2 of the 3 nights we'll lift for an hour, then 90 minutes we'll be on the court. The kids can play 5-on-5. We can run them. We can do those kinds of things, just working on their preseason conditioning. And then back in September, we only worked out 2 days a week, and then we bumped it up a day here as we got closer to the start of the season.
How long does it last, an open gym?
Tonight it's 90 minutes, 6:30 to 8, since there's no weight workout. And then Tuesday and Thursday it'll be 60 minutes of weights and then 90 minutes on the court.
Sam, sounds like a lot of work.
It does sound like a lot of work, but you know, they got to work hard to
yes,
to become Spartans and to carry on that tradition.
November 21st, Union County comes to Connersville.
Yeah, new coach over there, Jesse Moses. He has been the JV coach over there for years, so we'll see what changes maybe he implements over there. I'm sure he'll keep a lot of the same things that Coach Detweiler was doing, because they've had a lot of success over there since Coach Detweiler had been there. They returned 4 out of 5 starters, and
yes,
you know, it's been a long time. I mean, since we've played them, but just, you know, without looking too far ahead, that's kind of what I remember about them from last year. They lost 1 starter, and
yes,
I think they have some size.
Yes.
So.
And they always come prepared to play at Spartan Bowl.
Yes, they do. Ought to be a great atmosphere and a great game.
Well, I know you're optimistic about the Spartans this year.
Yeah, not quite sure what to think or expect. You know, we lost a lot from last year,
yes,
with, you know, Grant and Bo, yes, and Dalton and Hunter and Gavin. But we returned 2 starters, Garrett Silcott and Noah Belt, and then some guys that played off the bench and contributed. Dalton Lee and Braxton Reveley come to mind. So, but we've got some question marks, but we've got a really good group of kids. This summer we, you know, challenged them, and they responded really well. Wes Smith didn't play a lot last year, but had a good summer for us, so we're looking for him to step up. He'll be a senior this year, but no, you know, if summer's different, it's not the same as during the regular season. But if our kids perform anything like they did this summer, and I think we'll have a good year.
Those kids that are back from last year, back-to-back sectional champions, 3-time conference champions, they know what it took to do that, which I think has to really benefit them, because they know what to expect as the season goes along, and you got a great group to work around. Well,
we've had good leaders. I mean, I really like our kids, but they've bought in, they're on board, you know, they've done the right things. It's not been about them individually, it's been about the group and the team collectively, and we've benefited from it. We've won the conference 3 years in a row. We've won the sectional 2 years in a row. And obviously we've had some talent. Grant's playing at the next level at Indiana Wesleyan. Bo's actually on the practice team at Butler, on the girls' practice team. Dalton's a Division I pitcher at Indiana Purdue University Fort Wayne. And Hunter made 7 threes in a game. And then Gavin was, you know, your ultimate team player. You know, in practice and from the bench. But, you know, we've had kids that were on board with what we were trying to do, and that's, for the most part, been the last 3 or 4 years. And we've had good groups before that, but I guess maybe something that separates these groups from some previous groups is not that they're any better kids, but maybe the system's in place, and we've got a grittiness about us and a toughness about us, and I think that's enabled us to have some success. And it doesn't hurt when your kids have some skills. So we've had those things, and we've been fortunate. This will be a new year, and you know, there will be kids we'll ask to perform different roles than they had last year. And if we're right as coaches and putting them in the right role, and they perform, then hopefully we'll have another good year here.
Goals pretty much the same as what's been set the last few years.
Yeah.
Conference and tournament.
Yeah, I would hope that we would compete for both. And then my goal for us as a coach is just to get better from the start of the season to the end of the year and playing our best. And, you know, somewhere along the line, you're going to stub your toe and maybe you're going to take a step back. But as long as you keep moving forward and progressing, then I think by the time the end of the year rolls around, you'll have a shot for sectional. And hopefully along the way, you've taken care of business in the conference. You know, I think we're kind of marked because we've had the success we've had. And I think we have been anyway before that. I mean, since I've been here, I always felt like people, you know, Connersville had a bullseye on its back or chest or whatever it was. But I think, you know, those will be things that people will be trying to unseat us both as conference and sectional champions, just as we were when we were, you know, not the elite or the top team in either one of those. You know, we were hunting those other teams that were ahead of us at that time.
Finished with the best record in the state last year. That's quite an accomplishment.
Was it the best?
Still,
and I didn't know if we tied somebody at Logansport, somebody was coming to mind, but we were number one. Yeah. Great accomplishment for our kids, for our program, for our community. You know, I was fortunate enough to get to coach the All-Star team, and Grant played on the All-Star team, and the other two coaches were from Fort Wayne and from Culver, which are two communities way up north. And, you know, they'd saw the stuff on YouTube or Facebook or whatever the people were posting on of our crowd and the atmosphere that our kids got to play in the sectional and the regional. And, you know, they thought that was just really neat and tremendous, and maybe wasn't something that they'd ever seen or experienced at the schools that they were at. So, yeah, and I think that was because of you know, we had great crowds the year before and pretty good following the year before when we got beat in the championship game of the sectional. So, yeah, that was really neat, something that hopefully the kids look back on and have fond memories.
I have them, and I think the community does. But it goes back many, many years. It's just the tradition here, and people come out, they love the Spartans.
And it's been that way, like you say. It's a tradition, and it's just not that way everywhere. I think at one time maybe it was, but you know, with the new state of basketball, with class basketball, and, you know, not your maybe traditional rivalries in your tournament, schools changing conferences, some of that's been lost. But, you know, we've got a new team coming into our sectional this year with New Palestine, and we lose Newcastle. So it won't be all red and green, half red and half green on championship night. Let's hope half of it's red and it's Connersville representing. But, yeah, it's different now than it has been in the past.
Won 27 games and lost 2. One of the losses was during the tournament at Richmond, and then the final game of the regional. It's quite a record, Coach.
You know, it's interesting when you think about it and you go back, the 2 games that we lost last year, both of them were the second game of a day. And that might be one thing that's different about this year's team. I thought we were a little bit thin on the bench last year, but, you know, as we're looking at it as coaches going into the, you know, and during the preseason going into the regular season, we're not quite sure who's going to be in our top 8, 9, or 10, and not sure that there's the fall off from the 10th man to the 6th man or the 5th man, whoever that may be. So I think that would be a good thing, because I do think that sometimes plays a factor if you don't have the length. And Bo was hurt last year at the end of the year and tried to go, and we would have liked to have thought that would have made a difference. But we got through the sectional with him being hurt, and, you know, we won a game in the regional with him being hurt, and, you know, we ran into a really good team, a Buzzsaw and Ben Davis, and they went on and won the state and beat a Fort Wayne North team that we'd beat the year before in the Richmond tournament. So, you know, I guess when you asked about the two losses, both of them happened the same way. They were the second game of the day, and I think we were maybe a little bit fatigued. Now, I'm not making excuses. We would not have beat Ben Davis had Bo been healthy, I think, last year at that point in time. So I'm not trying to make an excuse.
Sure.
But what I was trying to share with you is I think we'll have maybe more depth this year, and there might not be a drop-off between our 10th and our 6th man. At least that's what we're hoping going in.
That helps a lot if you do have an injury. The next guy up, and if it doesn't drop off much.
Well, and Hunter did a good job last year stepping in for Bo in that spot. But the thing was then someone had to step up and perform Hunter's role, and we just weren't there last year. So, you know, it wasn't just that we'd lost Bo, but then we lost that position off the bench that Hunter was performing for us. So it is what it is, you know, and that's part of the game. You have to deal with it.
You mentioned having a bullseye on your back. I would think this would help the kids. They realize that, and when they go into a ball game, that that team is really up for us. I would think that would help.
Well, I think sometimes it works both ways. I think sometimes you rest on your laurels, so to speak, and maybe you think you've already arrived, and I don't have to put in the sweat and the work and the tears, and I've arrived, so to speak. But I think other people, then it motivates them to not lose what they've already gained, and I think it can work both ways. But if come November 21st, we're still thinking about last year's conference championship and last year's sectional championship and regional win, we'll end up on the short end of the score that night. So it's great, and I like to say, refer to those memories later on. But right now, there's some business at hand that we have to take care of, and we were good about it last year. We'd won the conference, we won the sectional, and we had kids that had that right attitude and the right work ethic and cared about one another. And hopefully, and I think I don't see no reason to believe that this group will be different, because what I've seen in the summer, I'm really happy with them. Really enjoy and like this group of young men.
Can you build confidence in a young man?
Probably, be more positive from a coaching standpoint, maybe less negative. Although, and that's probably something I've tried to work on, is being more positive. The kids might tell you differently, but I think they need to have confidence themselves, but I think as a coach you can impact that either way, positively or negatively. But if a kid's missed 15 shots in a row and he's a shooter, you tell him to take that next shot. But if a kid is not proven in practice that he can make that shot, sometimes we go through funks. But if it's, and I'm just using shooting as the example, but if you haven't proven that you can do that at some point in time in practice, you probably don't want to take that 16th shot. You probably want to get to the free throw line or get a layup or something like that. And, that's where, roles come in. And not everybody can do everything, at least not for us right now. Some kids can, but not everybody's in that position.
One of the coach's jobs, I would think, would be knowing the capabilities of each kid.
Yeah, well, and that's why we try to assign roles to them. And the better that they fulfill their role, the better they understand the role that we've explained to them, the better job we've done in practice coaching them, then they're gonna fulfill that role. And I can give you a great example. Last year in the sectional, Dalton Lee, caught the ball on the three-point line. And I've used this a number of times now, but he looked at the rim, he was wide open. The kid guarding him was down in the lane, and he knew that wasn't his role, that wasn't his strength. And then he looked at the rim again, and the guy came out of the lane, and that's when he went around him, and it was an and one, a three-point play, and the kid got his fourth foul, and I think then he got a technical because he didn't like it, and that was a big play in the game.
Yes.
But it was because he understood what he was capable of doing, not capable of doing, and what we needed him to do for our team to be successful. And we try to, share with everybody, what we would like for their role to be and what we see them capable of doing. And sometimes we're wrong, and we change, and that's why I've got good assistants, and they'll let me know if I'm messing up too bad.
Is there a most important time of a ball game? Is there a most important part? Is it the first 5 or 6 minutes, or second half a good start? What, in your opinion, is?
Well, I would say probably the most important part of the game is just closing it out, finishing the game, and sometimes that's the last 2 or last 3 minutes of the game, maybe even the last 4 minutes of the game. I think it's always important to get off to a good start at the beginning of a half. And, you can get off to a good start at the beginning of the game or a bad start at the beginning of the game, but you can overcome that. But I think coming out of the halftime and finishing or closing games is probably the most important time. And I've done this for a long time. I've been a part of, closing games out well and winning or losing sometimes. The other team just makes one more play than you. But I can also recall those games where you thought one got away because you didn't do the things you needed to do, protect the ball, make your free throws, not take rush possessions. And for me, it starts somewhere probably, honestly, if we come out to start a fourth quarter and there's 8 minutes to go and we're up 10, for me, an ideal possession, if we've got the ball to start the quarter, would be to take a minute off the clock and get a layup, or take a minute off the clock and get a wide open shot. But probably the worst thing you can do is come out and take a ill-advised shot with 10 or 15 seconds off the clock, give them the ball right away and get a chance to cut into your lead. So, I think about those things as a coach, but probably somewhere around the 4-minute mark, we're looking at free throws and layups if we've got the lead, and depending on the score.
Yes, yes. JV team, they had a good record last year.
They did. I think they won 15 games for Coach Bottomley. And those are some of the kids that we're looking at pushing,
Yes.
the juniors and seniors, and competing for playing time on the varsity this year. And we've got one more week of open gym, as we mentioned, then we start tryouts on the 6th of November. We'll have 3 days of tryouts, and I don't know for sure at the end of those 3 days if we'll know if they're a varsity or JV player, but we'll try to get somewhere between 18 and 21 kids selected for the varsity JV, and the freshman tryouts will be going on at that time as well. And on those first 3 nights, we're all together. Gives us an idea if we want to move somebody up, but also the younger guys, and they should know most of the drills that we're doing, but it gives them a chance to be in the gym and doing the same drills and observing the leadership of our older guys. And that's one of the things I think that's pretty good about our program. We've had good leadership. And they do a good job of then passing it down, so to speak. I call it the buddy system, something I stole a long time ago, and that's just where the older kids are mentoring the younger kids, and I think you see it all the time in our program.
Yeah. It's important for the seniors to understand their role. The underclassmen are looking up to them.
They are, and again, we've been fortunate to have really good senior leadership, both on and off the floor. And Gavin's a great example of someone that didn't get to play very much. But the leadership that he demonstrated, the care and the concern that he had for the other guys that were playing, you never would have known if he had the least bit of jealousy in him because he wasn't getting to play, because he was enthusiastic for what we were doing as a team, and he supported those kids oh so well.
Yes.
And then when he got his opportunities, he made the most of it. But, you know, that type of leadership comes to mind where it's about the team and it's not about me. And then, you know, there's some kids that lead verbally and there's some kids that lead physically, and there's some kids that do both by verbal and physical leadership. So it's great if you have those that talk it and they're physically, they're leaders, they're hard workers, but sometimes today you don't quite get the communication we would like to hear. But we try to force them to talk in practice. You know, we have things that we call echo yells, and they're supposed to be echoing everything that coaches are saying or what the captain's saying. And so we try to build that communication and leadership as well.
What about conference this year? Obviously, we expect to be at the top, but who else?
Well, I think from top to bottom, I think that anybody probably has a chance. South Dearborn has a new coach. I always think they have good athletic kids. I don't know what kind of system they'll be running, but you know, if I look back at last year's games, Franklin County, Greensburg, Lawrenceburg, East Central, all of those were close games. And then Batesville got a move in, and I think Rushville is going to be really improved this year. They've got just about everybody back except one player. So I think it'll be a dogfight, and I think you know, on any night, then maybe anybody can knock anybody else off. If you're just talking about talent, Greensburg's got really good young talent. But hopefully the good thing for us is they've got to come to the Spartan Bowl this year.
That's right.
And then, you know, hopefully the youth will show up a little bit. But, you know, they were pretty good last year when we played them down at third place. So,
Sure.
you know, that's all to be decided when we play them, when we match up. But I think it should be pretty competitive based on who's returning for each of the teams in the conference, and then a new coach at South Dearborn, and if he can get them turned around.
You mentioned New Pal coming in Newcastle's place in the sectional, but regular season schedule changes there?
Delta's going to come on, and we'll play them the Saturday after Thanksgiving. The Union County game, and that's not really where I wanted to play them at, but that was the only thing they had open, and we needed a game to take the place of the Ballard game. We won't play Ballard this year, which, you know, it'd been nice if we could have played them again, but that was something that we did for the state association, having the Indiana-Kentucky Challenge Cup games. That was a one-year deal, so Delta comes on in their place, and then the rest of the regular season's the same. And the Weddick draw just came out. I don't know if you guys got that yet.
I haven't seen that.
No, I haven't seen that either.
Well, if you guys shoot me a text or an email, I'll send it to you. But we actually drew a school out of Indianapolis. It's a home school, and I don't know much about them yet, but we'll find out by the time we play them. But there's, I think, 2 home schools, both of them Indianapolis home schools, in the Weddick tournament. And I'm trying to think our second round matchup, win or lose, would either be against Cathedral or Indianapolis Attucks, who was the 3A state champs last year. So,
Wow.
And then also in
Good.
our side of the 16-team tournament, Shelbyville. Gosh, I won't remember now off the top of my head, but there's somebody else that's pretty good on our side of the bracket. And then down the bottom's Park Tudor and Franklin Central and Richmond and whoever else. But there's 16 teams.
Pretty loaded.
Yeah, I think it'll be a strong field again. Maybe not the one elite team that there's been in the past, but I think there'll be more. South Bend Adams is coming back. That's another one. Maybe that's who will play the winner of Adams and Attucks. I can't remember now, but they had a kid on the junior all-star team, but he transferred to a prep school, is my understanding. And they fared very well over there last year. I don't know if you guys were able to make it over, but yeah, I can send that to you, and/or if you,
Okay.
I'm sure if you email Brent, he can send it to you as well. But that just came out at the end of fall break.
Great.
You like that tourney, don't you?
Yeah, no. I think the kids like it. We get to play 4 games. The part I like is playing 2 games in a day, which is like the regional. But we could probably find that in some other places and just have a 1 or 2 day tournament instead of 3 days. So the thing I don't like about it now is Shelbyville's in it and Greensburg's in it. And Greensburg's a conference game for us. They're in the bottom, but I really don't like the idea of playing them in that tournament because we got to turn around and play them our first game back after break on a Friday night. And so, hopefully we won't have to play each other. If we do, hopefully it's in the championship game. But that would not be an ideal situation. Then we already played Shelbyville and they're in it. I think that might be about it, but that's my only thing is, we've already seen those teams, or we're going to see them. So if it continues to get a flavor of teams already on our regular season schedule, we may look at doing something else.
Sure.
I always said when you have to play a team more than once during the season, it's kind of like kissing your sister. That it's okay, but why not play somebody else?
Well, and I wouldn't mind playing Shelbyville as much as Greensburg because they're a good competition. We've already played them earlier, but to play Greensburg in that tournament and then turn around and play them in the conference game, which to me has a lot more meaning in such a short span. I mean, because that tournament's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we'd turn around a week later and have to play them. So that's not an ideal situation, but hopefully we won't have to worry about it.
That tournament is December 27th, 8th, and 9th, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, it is. The 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Yeah. And you open the season with 4 home games. That's a little bit unusual.
I think that's good, especially this year. I think that's nice. And it seems like we've had an imbalance in our schedule. And I know Brent, Mr. Duncan's working to get that back in. I think at one time it was 12 and 8, and we had maybe like Muncie Central or Newcastle, someone, actually Batesville might have been flipped, and they actually played here back-to-back years to get it closer to being in balance, which is ideal. But just because we've got a lot of question marks and lost a lot from last year, hopefully the confines of the Spartan Bowl will be good to us, and that help us get off to a good start this year.
Right. You have Union County on the 21st, Delta on the 25th. Rushville comes to town on December 1, and Shelbyville on December 2.
Yeah, all very good schools, games, I think, to start off with. Rushville conference game, the last team that we've lost to in the conference in the last 3 years, so I know they'll probably want to, end the streak and be the team that beats us again. Shelbyville's loaded, returns a lot. Delta's a little bit of a question mark. We don't know as much about them, but just from talking to Coach Detweiler, I know he really likes the kids that he's got coming back that were new to him. And then I think Union County's going to have a really good year this year. Return 4 out of the 5 starters, and they've got some length and some size, so we'll have our work cut out for us.
Played some overtime games last year. I think Shelbyville was one, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Actually played 7 of them. We didn't get enough during the regular season, so we had 1 during the regional as well. Kind of had that feeling once we got it in overtime that, we had it right where we wanted them. And I think the kids had confidence was the good part about that. We were down 9 this time instead of us, having the lead and someone making a run on us. We were down 9 in the, I don't know what there was, 4 or 5 minutes going in the game, and came back, sent it in overtime, and then, I think that was a confidence boost to our kids. Hey, we've been here before, we've done that, and we played well and advanced from that morning game of the regional. But yeah, 7 total overtime games. Somebody said it was a state record. I never did go back and look at it, but you know, this group of kids going through has been part of a couple records in the last couple of years. The free throw game against Shelbyville from a couple of years ago, and then the overtime situations last year. So hopefully we'll do something unique and record-setting this year as well.
Something positive.
Yeah.
Two of the overtimes occurred in the conference, I believe. Greensburg was one.
Yeah, Greensburg down there was an overtime game.
Trying to think of the other.
And guys, Franklin County played as close. I can't remember if that one went overtime or not. East Central played as close here. If it would have been, it probably would have been one of those two games because Lawrenceburg came back. Rushville was not close last year. South Dearborn was semi-close, but not overtime close. So.
You guys know that's tough on the fans.
Well, it's not
it's tough
near as tough on the fans as it is on the coach when you're in those situations. So, but it's good. It's just good for the kids to be in those situations and been there and done that. And then when you get in a pressure-packed game, you know, just like first game of the sectional. We'd already played 4 overtimes with Mount Vernon, then we had to go 2 more, but it was completely opposite of the regular season game. We were kind of in control during the regular season. They came back, and they were kind of in control of the sectional game, and we had to do the coming back and give our kids credit again. They'd been there, done that, and performed very well.
You spoke about the fans. I know you're very happy with the turnout of the fans here in Connersville. Yeah,
it's you know, it's such a home court advantage, and then even when you travel, and you know, when we would go on the road, there were times, many times, when we had more fans than the home team did in the bleachers, and I know our kids appreciate that so much.
Yes,
it helps pick them up and lift them up, and I don't know that it gets you any points. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it sure is nice to have that support behind you.
You've got a good feeder program in middle school, haven't you?
Yeah, we've done our elementary stuff earlier. We've got those tryouts out of the way. We've got 2 second-grade teams, which I'm really glad. We only had 1 last year, and we have 2 third-grade, 2 fourth-grade, 2 fifth-grade, 2 sixth-grades.
Good.
And we just finished, and we did that 2 weeks before fall break, and then we did middle school tryouts the week before fall break, and we've got obviously 2 of each age group there. But we do a lot in the off season with our kids, you know, quite a bit in June, and then just like the high school guys, we give them time off. But we took him to team camp at Hanover in June, and that gets them about 10 to 12 games in a weekend format, and then we'll go play places with our middle school kids. And not everybody does that. Maybe not everybody has to do that, but it's something I feel like we need to do. So we'll take our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and we'll go play in the summertime. And they probably got 12 or 14 games in, just going to different places and playing round robin, you know, playing 2 or 3 games in a day when we go places. And then we'll practice with them for 2 months, or for 2 weeks during that month of June, and then we'll have a 2-week camp with them. So they get quite a bit, those that choose to participate.
8th graders last year, freshmen this year. What's Tim Howard got?
You know, Timmy's not back this year.
Oh, isn't he?
Actually, you know, that'll be maybe one of the first and only changes I've had this is maybe my 9th year here. I've had the same staff intact all that time. You know, Sean Atkins left and went back over to Rushville, but had former players come on, Cody Smith and Landon Spears, and they're going to be our freshman coaches this year. Both of them played for me and us here at Connersville. Sure. And Cody's been on our staff in the middle school capacity and helped with the freshmen in the past, and was a varsity assistant most recently. But him and Landon will coach the freshmen. Then Chris Bomley's back to coach the JV team, and then Zachary and J.D. Miller will be the varsity assistants again. So we lost Timmy. We're going to miss him. He did a great job. You know, it's one of those things as the head coach, you want that to take care of itself, and you don't want to have to be worrying about your JVs and your freshman teams, and I've been very fortunate from that standpoint.
Coach, thanks always for joining us. Sam and I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you, guys.
Always glad to see you.
Thanks, everybody, watching for Spartan Sports Report here on TV3.